And that is Congressman Brad Wenstrup. And Congressman, once again, welcome to the Bill Cunningham Show. And Congressman, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Believe it or not, we hang in there and we keep on going.
Let's talk about the most recent pancake put on the stack of problems, and that is what happened to Roe versus Wade. You're a doctor. You understand the sanctity of life. You understand what about what happened in 1992 with Casey, which basically overturned Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade had this formula of the first trimester there was certain no interest in the second trimester. It had to have reasons. In the third trimester, the fetus the baby was perceived to be alive. That was all thrown out by Casey. Casey said undue influence, undue burdens. So they've been working on this thing for almost 50 years. Well, what is your sense in Washington right now, as far as politically, then we'll talk about medically. Politically, if I've had some tell me the last couple days, you know what, this is great for the Democratic Party, and they all see this through a political lens. I see through the fact that 65 million babies ought to be alive that aren't alive. I talk about the sanctity of human life as you do, but nonetheless, politically, well, what are your Democratic friends telling you? Is this they're going to run on this and forget about the failures of their policies? What's going to happen?
Well, I think there may be a couple places where they run on this, where there are a majority of people that view abortion as a right, but abortion is more than just a word. It's the death of a child. It's a child that isn't you. That child may be in you, but once that egg is fertilized, that is its own human being. And what the Supreme Court did, by the way, and most of them don't seem to want to recognize it, even if they do recognize it, they don't talk about it. The Supreme Court did not ban abortion. Basically,
right.
What they said, this is not our call. There's nothing in the Constitution that guarantees you a right to abortion. You can create laws. You can do it in your state and maybe even a federal law. But what they were saying is it didn't belong here, never should have happened. It was terrible jurisprudence. And, you know, the power to pass laws resides with the people and their representatives, not 9 unelected judges and really not agencies, although we've seen our country go that way. So the ruling from Roe v. Wade, which legalized abortions up until the moment of birth, it stood out around the world. Most countries don't do this. Most countries did not have that in place. And, you know, in 2009, President Obama was president. He had the House, he had the Senate, and he said, oh, well, that's not my legislative priority. He failed to pass any legislation. Right. So he continued to leave it in place as it was. Now, you know, going to the medical side of things, as a physician, as a man of faith, I believe that life begins at conception. And, you know, medically and scientifically, it does. And when you remove that life from the womb, especially the violent way that it is removed, then to me, it's taking a life. It's a form of murder. So no matter how weak or small, to me, all human life deserves basic dignity and respect. You know, at the same time, and especially, you know, through my faith background, I want to help any mother that may be in a trying time while they're pregnant.
Sure.
You know, why don't we end up saving 2 lives or helping 2 lives one way or another? This is what I would like to see us focusing on as we move forward. So, you know, like I said, this doesn't ban abortion immediately, and it doesn't prescribe any standard for when abortion is allowed. So we're going to see these debates going on in the states, as I'm sure you're well aware. And the governor of Ohio, I happened to see his statement today, and he was asking for calm and let's have a discussion and let's do this civilly. And that's what we should do, and we should be talking about trying to do all we can for both the mother and that child.
Congressman, when you think about it, a child in the womb is not medical waste. It is not a cyst. It is not a tumor. It's not a toenail. It's not a kidney stone. It's not medical waste. It's a baby, and I've been honored to have a couple grandkids, and when we were invited to go to the obstetrician's office to look at the sonograms, I was in tears the whole time looking at, and of course, a lot of you want to know, do you see a little thing there? Do you see a stem or not? And if it's a girl or a boy, all you want's healthy. And to sit there and watch that life that is moving, is alive, is kicking, is sucking a thumb at about 6 weeks, an in utero baby has a heartbeat, there's brain activities, and to think that we have a chunk of Americans that can look at a sonogram. One might have the argument available 50 years ago, well, we don't have sonograms. I know when my son was born, is it a boy or a girl? Never saw him until he came out of the delivery room. We weren't allowed in at that point. I wasn't allowed in. I had to be out. So he comes out, and I said to Penny, is it a boy or a girl? And she said, it's Evan. And then I opened up the blanket, looked at the parts. I said 5, 10, 15, 20, 21. That's a boy. God bless America. And if it was a girl, I would have said God bless America. It makes no difference. How can people like Maxine Waters, who's threatening violence and insurrection against the U.S. Supreme Court, say that that is not a baby, that is medical waste? Explain that to me.
Well, this seems to be their culture of both violence and death. I mean, these are the same people that push physician-assisted suicide. As a doctor, 3 short words, right? Sacred charge to keep is do no harm. And, no matter what you say, this is killing. It's a form of taking a life. So that's another area, and we've got this in D.C. now, and we tried to stop it. So it's really this disrespect for life, disrespect for law and order. It all blends together if you think about it. Defund the police. Do whatever you want. Be whatever gender you want to be. All of these things, science doesn't matter, right? Remember they always said, we believe in science, trust the science. Well, how come you ignore it when it comes to this human being? Granted, that child depends on the mother whose womb they're in, but that still is a distinct human being. And so, again, why not help both? But this is a culture. This is a very scary culture to me for the future of America. And, young people, I'm kind of surprised because if you think about it, if you're under, 40-something, then your mother could have killed you. Your mother could have killed you. Does this not cross their mind at all? Does it not sink in with them that, if their mother had their attitude, there's a very good chance you would have never seen life at all. And it's just bizarre. It's just a bizarre train of thought for me.
Congressman, we got to talk about January 6th. The hearings go on infinitum, but on Friday afternoon when the decision, or Friday morning when the decision came out, the church of which I'm a proud member sent out an email to the Catholics in that church saying we're going to have a rosary celebration at 7 o'clock tonight to pray the rosary and thank the Blessed Virgin for what happened to Roe versus Wade. And will anyone want to come? Well, it turned out the church was packed, and the Catholics, the Christians showed up. They prayed the rosary. It took about an hour, and it was just a wonderful proceeding. Then I went home to put on CNN, and I watched leftist, Marxist firebomb police cars. I watched buildings being ransacked. I watched pregnancy centers put on by pro-life groups being vandalized and desecrated. And in many Catholic churches, there are now guards out in front. So on one hand, those who understand the sanctity of life pray the rosary. On the other hand, the leftists that oppose this burn police cars. Is that a fit, apt description of the differentials in this country between those who follow the law and those who ignore the law? It's freedom to do good. It's not freedom to do bad. We all have freedoms. You have the freedom to do good, but you don't have the freedom to do bad. And doing bad is the marching, the protest, the boycotts, the picketing, the fire bombs, the vandalism, the burglaries, the desecration of places. That's the language of the left, which happened 2 years ago with George Floyd, in which 750 American cities suffered billions of dollars in damages. There were several hundred cops who were mortally wounded by the leftists. Some were killed. There were about 40 people murdered during the George Floyd riots that went on forever. And the summer of rage supposedly has begun. But we'll come back to this. I know I got to talk with you about January 6th to get a perspective of what's happening. Because right now, there's little, shall I say, American public attention to what's happening on January 6th. I've tried many cases in my life, and when you hear one side of the story, I can't tell you how many times sitting in court as a bailiff for 4 years and now as a criminal defense attorney, I'm sitting there saying, boy, that case looks pretty good. And then the other side puts on their case, you're saying, what? That case just fell apart. You can't have a hearing without cross-examination, without adverse witnesses. Cross-examination is the greatest thing in the world to bring out the truth. There's no one on the right side to talk about the differentials of who was in charge of security at the U.S. Capitol. That'd be Nancy Pelosi. Was she notified 2 days ahead of time by the president trouble was coming? Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Senate, the night before was notified in an email from the FBI there might be a lot of difficulties tomorrow. So those in charge of security failed to act. Wouldn't it be interesting to know what did Nancy Pelosi know and when did she know it? Why did she not pull out the National Guard until the horse was out of the barn? Can you comment on that? Now you got me all pissed off, Congressman. I'm all pissed off sitting here.
Well, yeah, and you have a right to be, and you do get fired up when you see all this stuff and see it's just really going on in America. I'll bring both of these topics together, or all of these topics together, when it comes to. I remember Pope John Paul II when he came to America in 1996. I think he was in St. Louis, and he said, "Freedom consists not in doing what you will, but having the right to do what you ought." And so, too many people have strayed away from doing what you ought. You are free to do a lot of things, and they're not always good. And we don't want to take freedoms away from people. But if you don't adhere to doing what you ought to do and do things correctly and do things fairly, that's when your freedoms slip away. And we see it within our agencies very often. They're politically motivated. Instead of doing what they ought, they do what they will. And so we have a problem, and the January 6th Commission is just more of the same. And you described it well as a lawyer. You've been there. You've seen how it's supposed to work. And it's not at all what is happening. And I think most of America understands that this is just ridiculous. And they certainly have a way of really stretching the definition of the word insurrection, especially when we had a summer where people from the left were burning down federal buildings, and wouldn't that be considered an insurrection? And not only that, people were getting killed in the streets. We had our incident at the baseball field that came from the left. We are just at an extremely different time that's come to a head. It's been going on for a while, because I can even look at one of the schools in my district where several years ago they had to take down the 10 Commandments from in front of their building because the left and the ACLU, in cooperation with the court, said you have to take that down. So what you're telling America now is you can't have "thou shalt not kill" in front of a school. Now, and you think that in context of what's going on across this country and the violence we've seen and the murder of innocent children in school, what brought some person to that moment? And when you start to strip away from our society morals, values, virtues, honesty, truth, and real justice, then you're going to see more and more crazy behavior, because in a way what they're saying is it's okay to do this. We just showed you it's okay to do this. I'm old enough to remember Watergate, and I saw Republicans and Democrats saying, we are just seeking the truth of what took place here. That's not what happens today. You saw it with the impeachments. It just goes on and on and on. So it's lawlessness. It's typically without faith, and it's without virtues, and it's without a respect for life. So did that kind of wrap them all up together and make it even madder?
Yes, because basically I don't see a way out of this, because we got Biden in office at least for the next 2.5 years, and after that maybe Kamala Harris as far as the eye can see. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, now wait a minute. You have the freedom to do good. You don't have the freedom to do bad. That is a baby. Abortion has not been ruled on at all by the U.S. Supreme Court. What they've said is, let's send this matter back to the states, which is where it was for like 150 years, and let the states determine as laboratories of democracy what to do. Idaho is a little bit different than Ohio, and California is not the same as Kentucky. And let's face it, the state of Washington is not too much like Alabama. And so there's nothing wrong with having different states with different laws on these issues. And so if a woman wants to kill her unborn baby, they have many opportunities to do so. Number one, they cannot engage in the kind of sex that produces a child. Number two, they can take birth control pills or use condoms for the man. Number three, and men do not have babies. Number three, they can do the Plan B, which is the day after do that. And even now, the pharmaceutical abortion, the pill's going to be available. And so I'm looking at this, and to hear like the leaders of Canada and England talk about the horrors of what's happening in America with mothers not being permitted to kill their babies in some states anymore. I'm disgusted by the fact that Joe Biden whispers in the ear of foreign leaders to crap on this country when he's overseas, when they have no clue that the Supreme Court did not rule an abortion yes or no. The only issue is who makes the decision? The 5 black robes in Washington or Americans who want to vote? And if you want to vote, how's that undemocratic? I'm being told that it's undemocratic to vote. I'm being told that abortion needs to be celebrated on Mother's Day. I'm being told that the disinformation panel is all about freedom of speech. I'm thinking of 1984 and George Orwell. Well, Congressman, we got to go, but I look forward to the next several months. And politically, if it helps or hurts Republicans, I don't care. I care about unborn babies, especially those of persons of color that the media is telling us this morning about how many more black women are going to die because of this. Terry Moran of ABC News started a segment this morning about more women will be killed by this decision. That's how disgusting things are. Congressman, thank you very much. We got to run. But Brad, thank you very much. Thank you. Let's continue. If the line becomes available, you know the routine. 866-647-7337. We got nothing but problems, and I don't see solutions other than faith, family, and follow the law, and don't riot, and don't threaten to kill U.S. Supreme Court justices. Bill